In the heart of the Bitterroot Mountains, where the borders of Idaho and Montana weave together, lies a beautiful and foreboding wilderness. This land of towering pines and jagged peaks has long been the subject of whispered legends. Indigenous people spoke of beings that roamed the shadowed forests, half human, half spirit. Bauman, a hardened frontiersman of German descent, knew these stories. He grew up hearing tales of goblins and spectral creatures from childhood, yet like most men of his kind, he dismissed them as the idle fears of the superstitious. Bauman and his trapping partner, experienced mountain men, heard of a stream deep in a remote pass rich with beaver. The previous year, someone found a hunter dead there, his body ravaged by an unknown predator. They packed their gear and set out, leaving their ponies in a meadow at the edge of the pass. The forest thickened as they moved on foot, the towering trees swallowing the sunlight and casting long shadows across the trail. Hours passed before they reached a small glade by a creek. Here they made camp. The forest seemed alive around them, the rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds creating a symphony of wilderness. As the day waned, an uneasy silence fell over the glade, as though the woods were holding their breath. They set their traps upstream and returned to find their camp in disarray. The lean-to was torn apart, and supplies were scattered across the ground. Bauman muttered something about a bear. His partner frowned but said nothing, and they set about repairing the damage. The two men huddled by the fire as darkness fell. Then Bauman's partner, studying the tracks again by torchlight, spoke up. "Bauman, this bear's been walking on 2 legs." Bauman scoffed, though the remark left a gnawing unease in his chest. But as the fire crackled and the night deepened, the forest seemed to close around them. A putrid stench, sharp and foul, wafted through the air, making their noses wrinkle. Heavy footsteps circled the camp, deliberate and slow. Bauman froze, gripping his rifle tightly, his eyes straining to pierce the darkness. Then a large, hulking shadow loomed at the edge of the firelight. Without thinking, Bauman fired, the roar of the gunshot shattering the stillness. The figure retreated into the trees with a crash, leaving only the oppressive silence and the acrid tang of gunpowder behind. They sat by the fire, rifles in hand, as they heard the cracking of branches and rustle of leaves, sending their hearts racing. At first light, they set out to check their traps. They moved quickly, unwilling to linger longer than necessary. Tracks appeared along their route, large, human-like, and fresh. That night the creature returned. It stayed just beyond the firelight, pacing back and forth, its movements betrayed by the snapping of branches. Its long and guttural moans echoed through the trees, neither beast nor man. The two men built the fire, feeding it with dead logs to keep the flames roaring. They took turns standing watch, their eyes darting to every shadow that moved. By morning, the decision was clear. They had to leave. But leaving meant collecting the traps they had set. Reluctantly, they split up. Bauman's partner would pack their gear, while Bauman retrieved the last traps from a nearby pond. The forest was unnervingly quiet as Bauman worked. He worked quickly, his hands trembling as he secured the beavers. The shadows grew as the sun dipped below the horizon. Unease gnawed at him, and he quickened his pace, eager to return to camp. When he reached the glade, something was wrong. The fire was out, the faint wisps of smoke curling into the air. He found the packs neatly arranged, but there was no sign of his partner.
"Hey!"
Bauman called, his voice loud in the stillness. No reply. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning the clearing. Then he saw it. A form sprawled beside a fallen spruce. Bauman's stomach dropped. His partner lay lifeless, his neck twisted grotesquely, deep fang marks marring his throat. The ground around him was a chaotic mess of enormous tracks, as though the creature had circled its victim in some macabre dance. Bauman's panic surged. Whatever had done this was no ordinary predator. It had killed without feeding, its actions marked by malice rather than instinct. Bauman abandoned everything but his rifle. Heart pounding, he fled the glade, the forest blurring around him as he ran. He didn't stop or dare look back, the imagined sound of pursuit driving him forward. When he reached the meadow, the ponies were still grazing, oblivious to the horrors beyond the tree line. Bauman mounted one and rode through the night, the oppressive silence of the forest giving way to the distant howl of wolves. He didn't stop until he was miles away. Years later, Bauman recounted his story to Theodore Roosevelt, who included it in his book The Wilderness Hunter. Roosevelt, a man of reason and science, didn't dismiss the tale outright. Perhaps it was a clever predator, or perhaps it was something far more sinister, something that defied logic and explanation. Even today, the Bitterroot Mountains hold their secrets, and Bauman's tale lingers, a chilling reminder that in the untamed wilderness there are things that watch from the shadows, waiting for the unwary to stray too far. Watch these videos next for more exciting encounters.